You may find it difficult to believe that 5,300 years ago, Neolithic Orcadians were settling and building their homes in this corner of Orkney. 5,300 years ago trips easily off the tongue, but stop and think for a moment how long ago that actually was. The First World War was about 100 years ago. Columbus is said to have discovered America 530 years ago, but in fact the Vikings may have got there 500 years before him, 1,000 years ago. William the Conqueror invaded England in 1066, about 1,000 years ago. About 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ was born. About 3,600 years ago, the woolly mammoth became extinct. The last one died on Wrangel Island off the north coast of Russia. The Egyptian pyramids were built about 4,500 years ago. Stonehenge was finally completed 5,000 years ago, by which time people had already been living at Skara Brae for 300 years. You have to remember that Skara Brae would have looked very different 5,000 years ago. Initially, there was no bay here at all. When the ice retreated after the last ice age, it is thought it left a shallow depression in the land. This hollow was cut off from the sea. It may have been protected by beaches and sand dunes lying between where the two headlands now are. The depression later filled up with swampy vegetation and small freshwater lochans. The climate in Orkney would have been warmer, allowing trees and shrubs to grow. Over the years, the sea level rose, threatening the protecting sand dunes. In due course, they were breached by stormy onshore winds. The trees and shrubs would not have been able to survive in this new salty environment, and they died out. Sand blew inland, forming a typical Scottish West Coast Macher landscape. Eventually, the increasingly stormy weather and rising sea level ruptured the coastal protection, allowing the sea to flood in, creating the bay. Not as we see it today, but much smaller. Over the centuries, the sea encroached further and further inland, creating Skara Brae as it is now. For more than 5,000 years, this land hid a secret, which was dramatically revealed after a powerful storm in 1850. The gale tore away sand and soil from a mound known locally as Skara Brae. The name has since been corrupted to Skara Brae. After the storm, the landowner, William Watt, noticed some exposed stone walls and began excavating. He uncovered 4 stone houses. The site lay more or less undisturbed for another 63 years, until in 1913 some further excavations were carried out. This renewed activity seems to have attracted some unwelcome attention. A party, armed with shovels, descended on the site. After a weekend of furious digging, it is alleged they left with many archaeologically valuable items. In 1924, the site was placed under the guardianship of His Majesty's Commissioners of Works. That year, another gale-force storm damaged the now excavated buildings and destroyed one of the stone houses. To preserve the site, a large seawall was built. Eventually, in 1927, archaeologists Gordon Child and Wilson Patterson began serious excavation work. Skara Brae was declared a World Heritage Site in 1999 by UNESCO. Today, the village is administered by Historic Environment Scotland, and access is gained through the visitor centre. As you leave the visitor centre, on your way to the Skara Brae site, make sure you explore the reconstructed house. It's not easy imagining a modern family living in this small space. Archaeologists, however, believe a stone house would have been luxurious for the time. Inside, the houses would have been dark and smoky. Each house had a similar layout, with the fire contained in a central hearth for cooking and heat. The smoke would have permeated through a roof made of skins and turf, the smoke perhaps acting as an insecticide and a deterrent to vermin. Opposite the entrance is a stone dresser, which would have housed the family's more precious utensils. At one time, it was suggested these structures were altars, but this seems fanciful and has now been discounted. Also made of stone are the box beds. The larger one on the right of the entrance, traditionally the male side, is thought to have been the husband's, whereas the bed on the left of the entrance was the wife and children's. It's a short walk along the path to Skara Brae itself. You will see how close the site is to the sea. It was not originally this close. If nothing is done, the rising sea levels due to global warming will soon wash it away. In fact, it's thought that the village may already have lost some houses in earlier centuries as the sea edged further and further inland. As we will see, most of the houses had a very similar layout. Most scholars and archaeologists believe the village was occupied for about 600 years. It's not known why the village was abandoned, but this was probably gradually, and not because of some cataclysmic event. It then gradually became buried by sand and soil through the natural progression of time. The inhabitants of the village were probably early farmers raising sheep and cattle, supplementing their diet with seafood. Seeds of barley were discovered in the midden surrounding the houses, so perhaps there was even a Skara Brae beer. It appears that one of the houses might have been a workshop for fabricating tools, as it has no stone dresser, and fragments of stone and deer antlers were excavated from it. Another tool found in abundance during Gordon Child's excavation was what has become known as scale knives. These are sharp slivers of stone made by smashing the rounded beach pebbles against each other. The sharp edges created were probably used for scraping skins and butchery. As you can see, the houses are built into the midden, which helps provide support and also insulation from winter weather. Middens are basically the refuse tip of the time. It contains domestic rubbish, shells, bones, and ash from the fires. Narrow pathways, which may have been roofed, connect the houses. Each house had a narrow entrance with a stone slab for a door. The village had a drainage system and even indoor toilets, which I'm sure would have been much appreciated when a winter gale was raging. You may be wondering if the excavations found any valuable artefacts. Well, perhaps not any with an obvious monetary value, but some certainly provided some insight into the villagers' lives. Pottery vessels with flat bottoms and straight sides, decorated with grooves, indigenous to Orkney, were found. This is known as grooved ware. Intricately carved stone balls were also found. Similar stone balls have been found elsewhere in Scotland, but no one has yet worked out what their purpose was. Perhaps they were used as gaming pieces. Whatever their use, there is no doubt that a great deal of work went into carving them. The house, known as house number 7, is interesting in several ways. Some years ago, it was protected by a glass roof, but the fluctuating temperature and humidity was damaging it. The glass canopy has now been replaced by turf, making it impossible to view inside from the walkway. Access to the house was by a dedicated side passage, a passage that only served House 7. Excavations revealed the bodies of 2 women in a stone-built grave under the right-hand bed and wall foundations. The women were buried in a stone kist decorated with carvings. They appear to have been buried before or at the same time House 7 was built. Does this have any significance? Was this a ritual burial, making House 7 special in some way? Another interesting thing about House 7 is the entrance itself. Like all the other houses, the doorway is closed by a stone slab. But unlike the other houses, the wooden bar used to secure the door was situated on the outside of the door, meaning that it could not be opened from inside. Anyone inside was therefore isolated from the rest of the community. Was the structure used for rituals surrounding birth and death? Perhaps even initiation rituals? Or more prosaically, was it just a lock-up, a jail? Skara Brae continues to hold a lot of mysteries. Does Skara Brae have any connection with other Neolithic sites on Orkney? After all, Skara Brae is only 5 or 6 miles from the Ring of Brodgar, the Standing Stones of Stenness, and the Maze Howe tomb. These were all constructed at about the same time as Skara Brae. Could the men of Skara Brae have been labourers at these monuments, or were they simple farmers and fishermen? Or perhaps they were both. There is no doubt, however, from the evidence left at Skara Brae, they were sophisticated and resourceful people.